Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth, as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Praise the Lord. For he is good. For his mercy endureth forever. Praise the Lord God of Israel. For he is good. For his mercy endureth forever. The Lord of Lords, and King of Kings, the mighty one of Jacob, and there is no other. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
Today's reading will be from 1 Peter 14 to 16. 1 Peter 14 through 16. As obedient children, not fashioning yourselves according to the former lusts in your ignorance, but as he which hath called you is holy. So be ye holy in all manner of conversation, because it is written, be ye holy, for I am holy. I just read 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 14 through 16. May the Lord add a blessing to the hearing and reading of his word. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. So I don't think we have any selections today. We'll go ahead and get started with the lesson. But first I want to say praise to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Peace to everyone who is here, physical and spiritual Israel, as well as those who are watching live on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you may be. Peace to you as well. And happy Sabbath, everybody.
Happy Sabbath.
Today's lesson is a continuation from the last lesson I did, the holy things. This is part 2. This is about the tabernacle. Again, this is a continuation. In the first part, we went over the building of the tabernacle and all the items that go in the tabernacle, as well as the people who go in and out and do the service and the ministry of the tabernacle. The things that they do, the things that it requires to take care of the tabernacle. And today we're going to get a little bit more in depth in some of that, as far as the people involved. And today we're going to go over the movement, the preparation and the movement of the tabernacle, how it's moved. So hopefully we got most of the boring stuff done. Got a little bit more hard work, but not much. A little bit more, and we'll get through this. But I think it's important to go over this because, you know, if the Lord didn't want you to know it, He wouldn't have put it in the book. And so, since it's in the book, and I guarantee you, if you go to a church or a class tomorrow, you ain't gonna be covering none of this. They're not talking about this at all. And again, there's some of these things have a lot of importance. These holy things that the Lord considers most holy have a lot of importance to Him. And if it's important to Him, it ought to be important to us. And it ought to be important for us to understand it. So hopefully, by us going through this step by step and being careful to understand what things are, it helps us to understand the Lord's plan. It helps us to understand that He's showing us His plan for man's salvation. And when you get to things in, say, the New Testament, where He mentions certain little things, you have some understanding. Lessons like this give you a base knowledge and an understanding of what is mentioned in passing in the New Testament. So when something comes up, you say, oh, I understand what that mention was, and what that little thing he just happened to mention was, and you have the full understanding of what is going on there. And sometimes little things like that give you get the full meaning, and you get more understanding of what is being continued to be said. So hopefully that's I laid out the lesson for you, what I intend to do here. Again, with the lesson plan, I took the time to put everything on here that is being gone over, so that if you so desire, when you go back over this, or if you want to go back over this and read again, you kind of have a guide of what you're looking at. Because sometimes when we're reading these things, we kind of just, because it's monotonous and it's kind of tedious reading, sometimes you kind of just glaze over and you miss a whole lot of important information. So hopefully I helped to ease that pain a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start off in Exodus 40. I think when we left off in Exodus 39. Moses had finished gathering all the materials for the tabernacle. They had put together all the things, and Moses had blessed the people. So now we're in Exodus 40, and the tabernacle is now being readied for service. It's being readied for the actual service. Exodus 40, we're going to pick it up at verse 1. When you get it, brother, go ahead and read.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, On the first day of the first month shalt thou set up the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation. And thou shalt put therein the ark of the testimony, and cover the ark with the veil. Okay, so on the first day of the first month, he's supposed to set up the tabernacle. The first day of the first month. So what happens for you Bible scholars? What happens 14 days after this? Passover. Passover's coming 14 days later. So the first day of the first month, he's setting up this tabernacle. He says, and thou shalt put therein the ark of the testimony, and cover the ark with the veil. So now the tabernacle is set up, and now they are moving in. If you remember in the last lesson, the tabernacle, they had a temporary tent set outside the camp, right? And the ark was in that temporary tent. And Joshua stayed there with that temporary tent, guarding the Ark of the Covenant. Now the tabernacle is complete. Now it's being ready for service. They move the Ark of the Covenant into the tabernacle now. And it's covered with the veil. Okay, verse 4. And thou shalt bring in the table, and set in order the things that are to be set in order upon it. And thou shalt bring in the candlestick, and light the lamps thereof. So he's moving all these important things into the tabernacle, all the holy things. The ark was the first thing to come, and then everything else. Keep going. Verse 5. And thou shalt set the altar of gold for the incense before the ark of the testimony, and put the hanging of the door to the tabernacle. Come on. And thou shalt set the altar of the burnt offering before the door of the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation. And thou shalt set the laver between the tent of the congregation and the altar, and shalt put water therein. And thou shalt set up the court around about, and hang up the hanging at the courthouse, at the court gate. And thou shalt take the anointing oil and anoint the tabernacle and all that is therein, and shalt hallow it and all the vessels thereof, and it shall be holy. And thou shalt anoint the altar of the burnt offering and all vessels, and sanctify the altar, and it shall be an altar most holy. And thou shalt anoint the laver and his foot, and sanctify it. Verse 12. And thou shalt bring Aaron and his sons unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and wash them with water. Come on. And thou shalt put upon Aaron the holy garments, and anoint him, and sanctify him, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. 14. And thou shalt bring his sons, and clothe them with coats, and thou shalt anoint them as thou didst anoint their father, and that they may minister unto me in the priest's office. For their anointing shall surely be an everlasting priesthood throughout their generations. Okay, so something we didn't cover last time
or in the last lesson, was the holy garments that the priests and Aaron's sons wore. We didn't cover those, but those priestly garments, they have a lot of meaning as well. The colors mean some things. The breastplate that Aaron wears with stones on it are of different colors. They even mean something. And we're going to see later, each one of those stones, the color of those stones represent the tribes, the different colors of the tribes of Israel. And we're going to see those different colors come into play in relation to the camp setup. Okay, verse 16.
Thus did Moses according to all that the Lord commanded him, so did he.
Okay, so Moses did all these things according to what the Lord commanded him. Now we're going to go on. The tabernacle is completed. Verse 17.
And it came to pass in the first month of the second year, on the first day of the month, that the tabernacle was reared up.
Okay, the tabernacle is reared up. In other words, the tabernacle is set up. And notice, this is in the first month of the what? The second year, right? So this is the first month of the second year after they have come out of Egypt. So it's taken them a whole year being in this wilderness at Sinai, at the foot of Sinai, around the foot of Sinai, to get this done. Okay, so this is in the second year of them leaving Egypt. Verse 18.
And Moses reared up the tabernacle, and fastened his sockets, and set up the boards thereof, and put in the bars thereof, and reared up his pillars. And he spread abroad the tent over the tabernacle, and put the covering of the tent above upon it, as the Lord commanded Moses.
And the one thing I want to point out here is, notice who is it that is doing all this setup? It's Moses doing this setup. He's the one that brought the ark in. He's the one that set the candlesticks up. He's the one that did. He's the one that's doing all this setting up of the tabernacle right now. And we're going to see that the heavy work and the heavy lifting and things like that becomes a job of Aaron and the Levites. But Moses is the one that's basically getting all this set up right now. So he's doing most of the work. Of course, he couldn't lift the ark by himself, but he's the one organizing and making sure each of these things are done. And that anything that he could bring in himself and set up, he did. Verse 20.
And he took and put the testimony into the ark, and set the staves on the ark, and put the mercy seat above upon the ark. And he brought the ark into the tabernacle, and set up the veil of the covering, and covered the ark of the testimony, as the Lord commanded Moses. And he put the table in the tent of the congregation upon the side of the tabernacle northward, without the veil. And he set the bread in order upon it before the Lord, as the Lord had commanded Moses.
So he's setting up these most holy things. And we notice he's setting up a lot of these things represent the Lord, represent the presence of, the presence of the Lord. Go ahead.
And he put the candlestick in the tent of the congregation, over against the table on the side of the tabernacle southward. And he lighted the lamps before the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. And he put the golden altar in the tent of the congregation before the veil. 27. And he burnt sweet incense thereon, as the Lord commanded Moses. And he set up the hanging at the door of the tabernacle. And he put the altar of burnt offering by the door of the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation, and offered upon it the burnt offering and the meat offerings, as the Lord commanded Moses. And he set the laver between the tent of the congregation and the altar, and put water there to wash withal. And Moses and Aaron his sons washed their hands and their feet thereat, when they went into the tent of the congregation, and when they came near unto the altar, they washed, as the Lord commanded Moses. 33. And he reared up the court round about the tabernacle and the altar, and he set up the hanging of the court gate. So Moses finished the work.
Okay, so we see Moses setting this thing up, and the way he goes about this is a process. It's a process that he's doing. And we're going to cover this later on, but this process shows God's plan for man's salvation. So it's a very specific process, and it's a very meaningful thing that he's doing. It's a very meaningful process that he is following in. Okay, so let's go Verse 34. We are looking at the cloud. The tabernacle is completed, and now the cloud covers the tabernacle. Everything's done. Moses finished the work. Everything is absolutely done. All the things are inside the tabernacle, and now the cloud will cover the tent of the congregation. Verse 34. Go ahead.
Then a cloud covered the tent of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter into the tent of the congregation, because the cloud abode thereon, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And when the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle.
That's good. So this says, then the cloud covered the tent of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. It filled the tabernacle so much that Moses was unable to enter into the tabernacle because the glory of the Lord filled it so much. We can read also another scripture in the future temple that's built by Zerubbabel. Same thing will happen again. The glory of the Lord will fill that temple. So this is an ongoing thing that we recognize here. Something, and we know that like the animal sacrifices, these are supposed to be shadows of things to come, right? This glory filling with the Lord, the filling of the tabernacle, His glory filling the tabernacle, showing you something that's going to happen in the future, something to look forward to. Let's go now to Numbers 9. Numbers 9. Numbers 9, we're going to pick it up at verse 15. Numbers 9 and verse 15. All right, brother, when you get it, go ahead.
And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, namely the tent of the testimony. And at even there was upon the tabernacle as it were the appearance of fire until the morning. Okay, so again here we read that the tabernacle was, when it was reared up on that very day, the cloud covered the tabernacle. Namely, and here's something that I mentioned earlier. He calls it the tent of the testimony. I believe it's in Acts 7. The reference is made to the tent of the testimony. This is what that reference is in reference to. That's what it's in reference to. This tent of the testimony. So, like I say, when you're reading and other things, you get little things like this that should make you say, "Oh, okay, yeah, I know what he's talking about here." But anyway, the tabernacle is reared up. The cloud covered the tabernacle, namely the tent of the testimony, and at even there was upon the tabernacle, as it were, the appearance. Did you finish this part? Yes. Okay. As it were, I didn't want to do your job. At even there was upon the tabernacle, as it were, the appearance of fire until the morning. So in the daytime, they see a cloud on the tabernacle. In the evening, it was this appearance of fire. I would imagine, it looked like the tent or the tabernacle was on fire at night. Like it was being consumed, but it wasn't. Probably like the burning bush, because the presence of the Lord was in there. Because it was His desire to dwell with us. Verse 16. So it was always the cloud covered it by day, and the appearance of the fire by night. And when the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle, then after that the children of Israel journeyed, and in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel pitched their tents. And at the commandment of the Lord the children of Israel journeyed, and at the commandment of the Lord they pitched. As long as the cloud abode upon the tabernacle, they rested in their tents. Okay, so this is how they knew when to move the tabernacle. So he says when the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle,
Then after the children of Israel journeyed, and in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel pitched their tents. So they followed when the cloud rose up, they followed where the cloud went. And where the cloud abode, that's where they knew that they were supposed to pitch, and the cloud would come down and abode upon the tabernacle as they rested in their tents, it says. So this is how they knew when to move and when not to move the tabernacle. Now, somebody put the question to me, so how high did the cloud go up? Now, I cannot read anywhere where it says exactly how high the cloud went, but reasoning things out, I would imagine that the cloud did not go very high, because if the higher it went, it would signal where Israel was at. And that would be a detriment to them, because they wouldn't want their enemies to know where they're at. Israel had a lot of enemies at this time. And so if they knew where they could see this cloud from afar off, they'd know how to attack or where to attack Israel. So I would imagine that the cloud was just high enough so that they could see it, and that none of the surrounding people who would be watching or looking could see this thing. And the same it'd probably be at nighttime with the pillars, with the fires on the tent. It probably was just right there localized so that Israel, the camp, could see it and not everyone else, because it would make them a very easy target. Where you at?
19.
Verse 19, come on.
And when the cloud tarried long upon the tabernacle many days, then the children of Israel kept the charge of the Lord and journeyed not. And so it was, when the cloud was a few days upon the tabernacle, according to the commandment of the Lord, they abode in their tents. And according to the commandment of the Lord, they journeyed. And so it was, when the cloud abode from even unto the morning, and that the cloud was taken up in the morning, then they journeyed. Whether it was by day or by night that the cloud was taken up, they journeyed.
That's right, come on.
Or whether it were 2 days, or a month, or a year, that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle. Remaining thereon, the children of Israel abode in their tents, and journeyed not. But when it was taken up, they journeyed. At the commandment of the Lord, they rested in the tents, and at the commandment of the Lord, they journeyed. They kept the charge of the Lord at the commandment of the Lord by the hand of Moses.
So the cloud dictated when they moved and when they stayed. According to the cloud, that's how they did things. Okay, so we understand how important this cloud was, and this mechanism or instrument for communicating to the Israelites when and where they were going. Okay, we finished that.
Yes.
All right, so now let's go to Leviticus 7. So now we understand, we have the mechanism for knowing when the tabernacle was to move, which direction it was to move, and when it was to stop, and where it was to stop. Now we need to cover some other things here. We need to go over the various offerings. We're going to Leviticus 7. Leviticus 7, and we're going to pick it up at verse 37. And we need to understand some things that happen around the tabernacle, and one of these things definitely is the offerings, the different offerings here. We're not going to get too in depth with the offerings, but enough to cover so that you get a good understanding of what's going on. So Leviticus 7, we're going to pick it up at verse 37. These, in case you don't have it highlighted in your Bibles, these are all the offerings that are done. These are every single offering that are done, 6 of them. I think technically you could probably say 7, but they cover 6 here. Leviticus 7, verse 37. Go ahead.
This is the law of the burnt offering, of the meat offering, and of the sin offering, and of the trespass offering, and of the consecrations, and the sacrifice of the peace offerings.
So these are all the different sin offerings: the burnt offering, meat offering, sin offering, trespass offering, the consecrations. The consecrations, that's when they consecrate and purify the high priest and the Levites. Because there is a difference between the high priest and the Levites. They have different jobs. They have different administrations. You had to consecrate them, and that consecration required a sacrifice, which is totally different from the others. and of the sacrifice of peace offerings. Verse 38.
Which the Lord commanded Moses in Mount Sinai, in the day that he commanded the children of Israel to offer their oblations unto the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai.
Okay, now let's go to Leviticus 1. And first we're going to look at the burnt offering. And again, we're not going to get too in depth with this, but we're going to get just enough so that you get some understanding. Leviticus 1, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Leviticus 1 and verse 1. This is a burnt offering. All right, brother, when you get it, go ahead.
And the Lord spake, and the Lord called unto Moses, and spake unto him out of the tabernacle of the congregation, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, If any man of you bring an offering unto the Lord, ye shall bring your offering of the cattle, even of the herd, and of the flock.
So the Lord called unto Moses, it said, and he spake unto him from where? Out of the tabernacle of the congregation. So the Lord is communicating with Moses from the tabernacle. Now we're gonna see this again a little bit later on, but this is actually the first time that Moses communicates with the Lord from the tabernacle. This is the first time since it's set up. This is the first time that he communicates with the Lord. Verse 3.
If his offering be a burnt sacrifice of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. He shall offer it of his own voluntary will at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord. And he shall put his hand upon the head of the burnt offering, and it shall be accepted for him to make atonement for him. Okay, so there's some key points here that I want to make sure that you understand. Verse 3, he said, verse 2, speaking to the children of Israel, saying to them, If any man of you bring an offering unto the Lord, ye shall bring your offering of cattle, and even of the herd, and of the flock. If his offering be a burnt sacrifice of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. Now here's the key point. He shall offer it of his own voluntary will at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord. This is supposed to be done at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Not at his tent, not outside the tent, the camp, not somewhere far off in the mountains. This burnt offering is supposed to be done at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Verse 4. And he shall put his hand upon the head of the burnt offering. And he shall put his hand upon the head of the burnt offering. Meaning the person who is bringing this burnt offering to be sacrificed, he is to put his hand on the head of this burnt offering. Go ahead. And it shall be accepted for him to make atonement for him. This is to make an accepted for him as an atonement for him. So it's kind of like he is passing his sin onto the burnt offering, unto the animal to be sacrificed, to be atonement for his sin. Everybody understands that concept? Okay, I see a few thumbs as Brother Foss says, a few thumbs. Okay, so everybody understands that concept. He's passing on this sin to the offering, and this is for an atonement of his sin. Verse 5. And he shall kill the bullock before the Lord. And who shall kill it? He shall kill the bullock before the Lord. See, this is something that we don't always consider. He is responsible for killing this bullock before the Lord. The person who is doing this is supposed to kill it before the Lord. Now, I'm a hunter or fisherman, so, killing and slaughtering these animals, after a while, it doesn't get to you anymore. But if you're not of that type, you're not of that, so you're one of you city slickers, have never done that. Killing this bull or an animal, or a goat or something, initially that's going to bother you a little bit. You're going to have, that's going to cause you pause. But this is to make you think about it a little bit. Hey, I did something I shouldn't have to do. Now I got to take this animal and I got to kill it. And that is meant to give you pause, right? Besides hitting your pocket a little bit, it's supposed to make you think. If you got any kind of conscience, it's supposed to make you think a little bit.
But he is responsible for killing the bullock before the Lord. And then what?
And the priest, Aaron's sons, shall bring the blood and sprinkle the blood round about upon the altar that is by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation.
And then Aaron and his sons, they take the blood, they sprinkle it around about the altar and the tabernacle of the congregation. Verse 6.
And he shall flay the burnt offering and cut it into his pieces.
So he's filleting it, basically. He's cutting it up into the different parts. We might say steaks or whatever. He's cutting it up into the different parts. And then what? Verse 7.
And the sons of Aaron the priest shall put fire upon the altar and lay the wood in order upon the fire. And the priest, Aaron's sons, shall lay the parts, the head and the fat, in order upon the wood that is on the fire which is upon the altar.
So the man is responsible for cutting up this, for killing the animal, for cutting it up, and then he gives the blood and he gives the parts to Aaron and the priest, and they set up the altar. They light the fires and they set the pieces on the altar to be sacrificed. So their part is the taking of the blood and the taking of the meat and then setting it up on the altar. But as far as the killing of the animal, that was up to the man to do that. That was totally up to him. Let's go to Leviticus 3. Look at the peace offering. See if anything changed here. Leviticus 3. And we're going to pick it up in verse 1. Go ahead.
And if his oblation be a sacrifice of peace offering, if he offer it of the herd, whether it be a male or a female, he shall offer it without blemish before the Lord. And he shall lay his hand upon the head of his offering and kill it at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation.
Okay, so we see the same thing. He's laying his hand upon the head of the offering, and he has to kill it where? At the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. This is very important to understand. These offerings are done at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So what the Lord is doing here, he's building in a way to try to keep you from sinning. And you're going to see that. We're going to see that a little bit later. But the Lord's trying to help you out to keep you from sinning. But hard-headed as we are, we find ways to get out there and do our own thing and sin and make the Lord mad at us. But the process is still the same. He still lays his hand upon the head of the offering, and he still kills it at the door of the congregation. And Aaron's sons sprinkle the blood round about the altar. Verse 3. No, I'm sorry. That was 1 and 2, right? Yes. Okay, so 1 and 2. All right, let's go. Now we're going to go to Leviticus 12. Okay, we have seen that the man in these cases brings the offer to the altar to be sacrificed. But what about the woman when she sins? What about the woman? Does she bring it? Does she do the same thing? She's got to find a way. She's got to have a way to atone for her sins, right? So you think the Lord has a woman to come up and do the same thing, to kill this offering? Could you do it? Could you women? You think you women could do this? It's a hard thing. This is not an easy thing. But this is atone for your sin. I mean, we're talking about taking the knife and actually cutting the animal's throat or sticking it or however they killed it to take his life. See, when you think about, okay, this is, putting your actual hands to doing this thing, it becomes a little bit more real to you, huh? It's not an easy thing. These things are supposed to make you think. He was trying to make you understand the consequences of your sin. Leviticus 12, and let's look and see an example of what the woman had to do. This is about motherhood. This is cleansing after motherhood. But she had to do a sacrifice too. But let's see if it's of the same magnitude as we have read previously here. Leviticus 12, verse 1. Go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a woman have conceived seed and born a child, then she shall be unclean 7 days. According to the days of the separation for her infirmity shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 3 and 30 days.
30 days he is unclean because of the birth of this male child. Keep going.
She shall touch no hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled. But if she bear a maid child, then she shall be unclean to 2 weeks, as in her separation, and she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 66 days. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled, for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for her burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, unto the priest.
Okay, so now we see the woman, she doesn't have to bring a bullock. She gets a little bit of a break. She brings a lamb, a little cute lamb, bring a little cute lamb up, or she can bring a turtle dove or a pigeon as a sin offering. So she got a little bit less of a burden. It could be a little bit smaller animal, a little bit, you got a cute little turtle dove or pigeon. That's the things that see. Start thinking about this, huh? But she brings this unto the priest. It says unto the priest. Now, does she have to kill it? Let's keep reading, find out. Verse 7.
Who shall offer it before the Lord and make an atonement for her?
Oh, she got out of it. She got out of it. She didn't have to kill it. She gave it unto the priest, who shall offer it before the Lord and make an atonement for her. Keep going.
And she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. This is the law for her that hath borne a male or a female.
See, that's rotten. That's a rotten deal. You women got out of it. I'd have made you kill it too. So, but it makes you think a little bit. If this is just for the cleansing after childbirth. Now, after, for a burnt offering or for peace offering, for trespass offering, it doesn't say what the woman does. It doesn't really say how she makes an atonement for those things like the man does. So I'm assuming, and this is a dangerous thing when you start assuming things, but if she has a husband or she is still under the head of her house is still her father, then I guess he can make that atonement for her. But there's got to be a way for her to atone for her sins, because she can't bear those sins forever. So there's got to be a way. But clearly, the man does these offerings himself, does the killing, lays his hands on it to make an atonement for his sins. But here in this case, the priest is able to do it for her. So maybe that's the same for the burnt offering. The priest, she can bring a cow or a bullock to the priest and he can do that. I don't know. I can't read it, so I don't know. But that's a little bit of a break there. Now you have hopefully you have a little bit of understanding on that. Now let's move on to Romans 6. We did finish that, right?
Verse 8.
Oh, verse 8. Okay, go ahead.
And if she be not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtles or 2 young pigeons, the one for the burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean. Okay, so if she can't afford to bring a lamb, then she can bring 2 turtles. Those are turtle doves, not turtles. A turtle would be unclean, so it wouldn't even be a valid sacrifice. So she can bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one for the burnt offering and the other for the sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean. So again, the priest does the actual sacrifice to make the atonement for her. Romans 6. Since I didn't put any New Testament scriptures in the last lesson, I feel like I had to throw one in here this time. So we can get at least one this time. Romans 6. And we're going to pick it up at verse 23. Because we need to understand the necessity of the blood sacrifice. We need to understand why the blood sacrifice is important. Because, well, I'm going to let the book tell you. Romans 6, verse 23. Read it. For the wages of sin is death.
So, for the wages of sin is death. So if you commit sin, something has to die. Blood has to be shed if you commit sin. And at this time that we're concerned about, an animal was able to take his blood was able to be shed for your sin and for your and he would be the sacrifice. But again, this is a foreshadowing. This is a shadow of things to come. So the importance, the necessity of the blood sacrifice, the wage of sin is death. Keep going, finish that out.
But the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord.
That's right. So the necessity is the necessity of the blood sacrifice is because the wage of sin is death. Let's go to Leviticus 17. This is why these 6 different sacrifices are so important, because the Lord allowed us to kill one of these animals so he didn't have to kill you off. Because we are hard-headed and raunchy people. And it would have been not very long before the Lord had to do us all in to where there wasn't none of us left. So he had to give us a way to make atonement for our sins. Leviticus 17, we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Leviticus 17 and verse 1. All right, brother, go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron, and unto his sons, and unto all the children of Israel, and say unto them, This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded, saying, What man soever there be of the house of Israel, that killeth an ox, or lamb, or goat in the camp, or that killeth it out of the camp, and bringeth it not unto the door or the tabernacle of the congregation, to offer an offering unto the Lord before the tabernacle of the Lord, blood shall be imputed unto that man. He hath shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among his people. Okay, so do we understand what he's just said here? He said clearly that if anybody who kills an ox or a lamb or a goat in the camp, or that killeth it out of the camp, outside the camp, and bringeth it not unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, to an offering unto the Lord before the tabernacle of the Lord, blood shall be imputed to him unto that man, and he has shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among his people. So, if you thought you were doing a sacrifice away from the tabernacle of the congregation, you was just getting yourself in trouble with the Lord. You was just practicing, because it didn't mean nothing to the Lord. And it's serious enough that the Lord said, if you do this, you should be cut off. So like I was saying earlier, the Lord had built-in protection to keep you from doing something. And we're going to see why. Why was the Lord so particular about you doing this at the door of the congregation? Verse 5. To the end that the children of Israel may bring their sacrifices, which they offer in the open field, even that they may bring them unto the Lord, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, unto the priests, and offer them for peace offerings unto the Lord.
So he's just saying these offerings and these sacrifices must be brought unto him at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Verse 6.
And the priest shall sprinkle the blood upon the altar of the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and burn the fat for a sweet savor unto the Lord. And they shall no more offer their sacrifices unto devils, after whom they have gone a-whoring. This shall be a statute forever unto them throughout their generations. So this is the protection the Lord he built in, so that you didn't go out and do what was natural to you and sacrifice unto devils. Because if the Lord did not make it a plain rule that all sacrifices have to be done at the tabernacle, you know how we are. Pretty soon we'd be off in the woods, butt naked, with our kids getting ready to pass through the fire to Justin Timberlake or Jennifer Lopez or somebody, because we're doing our own kind of sacrifice. We're off doing our own thing. We would create different ways of doing sacrifices. So the Lord said, no, you're not going to go off and do your own thing in the woods, off by yourself, where nobody else can see you. You're going to do this thing in front of the tabernacle of the congregation, where it all can be seen, where everybody's accountable, and that way nobody's off sacrificing to their own gods or their own devils. So this thing is very open and plain for all to see, and that way it keeps you from sinning. It keeps you from sin. It keeps your hands from sin, because you know we'd be off doing something crazy. We did it too many times. Verse 8. And thou shalt say unto them, whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers which sojourn among you, that offereth a burnt offering or sacrifice, and bringeth it not unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, to offer it unto the Lord, even that man shall be cut off from among his people. And whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, that eateth anything, any manner of blood, I will even set my face against that soul that eateth blood, and will cut him off from among his people.
So he's being very specific about these things. You have to, he said, you, either anybody of the house of Israel, he said, or a stranger that sojourn among you, that you have to bring this before this sacrifice before the tabernacle, the congregation. And then he says, and you shall not eat any manner of blood. I will even set my face against that soul, he says. So you're not allowed to eat any manner of blood in anything, or you would be cut off. Verse 11.
For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul.
And see, this is the necessity of the blood sacrifice. He says, for the life of the flesh is in the blood, and he says, I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. This is why the sacrifice is so important to you. For it is the blood that make atonement for the soul. Because it's like we read Romans 6:23, the wage of sin is death. So the blood makes atonement for your soul. Makes an animal sacrifice very important to you, huh? Number 7. Number 7. Number 7. And now we're going to look at the gifts and offerings that are brought to the tabernacle. Number 7, and we're going to pick it up in verse 1. 7 and 1. Go ahead.
And it came to pass on the day that Moses had fully set up the tabernacle.
So all these things are happening on the same day. This is still the first day of the first month, right? Okay, keep going.
And had anointed it, and sanctified it, and all the instruments thereof, both the altar and all the vessels thereof, and had anointed them, and sanctified them, that the princes of Israel, heads of the house of their fathers, who were the princes of the tribes, and were over them that were numbered, offered.
Okay, so the princes of Israel, the heads of their fathers, the heads of the house of their fathers, or the princes of the tribes, were over them that were numbered. We're going to see how these princes were selected. But these heads of these houses, of these different tribes, have come and they are bringing their offerings. Verse 3.
And they brought their offerings before the Lord. 6 covered wagons and 12 oxen, a wagon for 2 of the princes, and for each one an ox. And they brought them before the tabernacle.
So all these offerings are brought before the tabernacle. Go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Take it of them, that they may be to do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. And thou shalt give them unto the Levites, to every man according to his service.
Okay, so all of these heads of the houses of Israel bring these animals to the door of the tabernacle, and these are for the service. The Lord says, take these things, and these are going to be for the service of the congregation. And the Levites will take charge of this. Verse 6.
And Moses took the wagons and the oxen, and gave them unto the Levites. 2 wagons and 4 oxen he gave unto the sons of Gershon, according to their service. And 4 wagons and 8 oxen he gave unto the sons of Merari, and according unto their service, under the hand of Ithamar the son of Aaron the priest. But unto the sons of Kohath he gave none, because the service of the sanctuary belonging unto them was that they should bear upon their shoulders. Okay, so these names that are mentioned, these sons of Levi, Gershon, Merari, Ithamar, these sons of Levi and Kohath, they all are being given specific jobs.
Now, so we see here that certain things were given to Merari. We see certain things were given to Ithamar. But unto Kohath, he said, the sons of Kohath gave none. None of these things were given to Kohath. Why? Because the service of the sanctuary belonging unto them was that they should bear upon their shoulders, so that they had a heavy burden to do. And the one reason why I'm singling them out right now is because we're going to cover them a great deal here moving forward. The sons of Kohath, that they are not given a specific job according to the offerings that are brought here. Verse 10. Verse 10. Go ahead.
And the priests and the princes offered for dedication of the altar in the day that it was anointed. Even the princes offered their offering before the altar. And the Lord said unto Moses, they shall offer their offering, each prince on his day, for the dedication of the altar.
Okay, so verse 12.
And he that offered his offering the first day was Nahshon, the son of Amminadab, of the tribe of Judah. Okay, so each of these sons, each of these princes from each of these tribes brought their offering. And verse 12 says, and he that offered his offering the first day was Nahshon, the son of Amminadab, of the tribe of Judah. So Judah, this Nahshon, was the first to bring his offering. He was of the tribe of Judah. This is very important to understand. It goes right along with the blessing that I believe was from Abraham in Genesis. He said the law should never pass between, or the scepter should never pass between Judah's feet. This goes right along with that blessing. This goes right along according to that. Judah, one of the princes of Judah, was the first to give an offering. And the other important thing to understand about this in relation to the tabernacle and how the tabernacle moved, the order of the offering was the same order in which the ark or which Israel moved. So since Judah was the first to offer, they were the first to move behind the Ark of the Covenant. And then all the tribes that offer subsequent to this, and you can, on your own time, since I know this fascinates you so much, when you read the rest of this, you will see they goes in line which tribes follow after that, which princes came next, and each of this is all in order. This is how they moved, in order. So when you read the rest of this on your own time, you will see the exact order in which they traveled. Now let's go to Numbers 3. Let's go to Numbers 3, and we're going to see the responsibility of Levi's descendants who are placed with responsibility of the tabernacle, with responsibilities concerning the tabernacle. So have I lost anybody so far? Does everybody understand everything that's been presented so far? All right, praise the Lord. Numbers 3. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1. No, verse 5, right? Okay. Numbers 3, verse 5. All right, brother, go ahead. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Bring the tribe of Levi near, and present them before Aaron the priest, that they may minister unto him.
Okay, bring the tribe of Levi near, and present them before Aaron the priest, that they may what? That they may minister unto him, right? It says, it uses the words that they may minister unto Aaron. Does anybody think that when the Levites are brought to Aaron, does anybody think that that means that they are teaching Aaron something? Because when you see that word minister, there's a common misunderstanding that that means that they were teaching Aaron something, right? But that is not what the case is. And the reason why I'm making this point is because we're going to see a little bit later on where some Hebrews are making a mistake according to what they're reading here. They're making a mistake. They're teaching falsely based upon a misunderstanding. So the Levites are brought to Aaron. Aaron, I want to point out, just in case anybody doesn't know, is also a Levite. But these Levites are, I want to say, his cousins, his close relatives. They're brought to him to minister in the priest's office. In other words, they have different jobs. They're to take care of the business of the tabernacle, the congregation. They have jobs to do. Verse 4. I'm sorry, where am I at? Verse 7, all right.
And they shall keep his charge, and the charge of the whole congregation before the tabernacle of the congregation.
So they're to keep his charge, in other words, to do the task that he sets forth, and the charge of the whole congregation before the tabernacle of the congregation. So they have jobs to do. Not that they are ministering in the sense of teaching Aaron anything. They have jobs to do concerning the congregation, the tabernacle of the congregation. That's what they're doing here. Verse 8.
The last part of 7.
Last part of 7. Go ahead.
To do the service of the tabernacle.
That's right. Come on.
Verse 8. And they shall keep all in the instruments of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the charge of the children of Israel, to do the service of the tabernacle.
So they're to keep charge of all the instruments of the tabernacle of the congregation. So these Levites are responsible for taking care of all the holy things that are put into the tabernacle. Keep going.
Verse 9. And thou shalt give the Levites unto Aaron and to his sons. They are holy, given unto him out of the children of Israel.
Because you remember, if you were here or got to see the lesson that I did about Israel being Israel my firstborn, we covered this. When the Lord brought Israel out of Egypt, he claimed Israel's firstborn. The job of the firstborn was to take care of the business that we're seeing that's being appointed to the Levites now. And now the Lord is saying, thou shalt give the Levites unto Aaron. So he's giving the Levites unto Aaron and to his sons, and they are wholly given unto him out of the children of Israel. And in the lesson about the firstborn, the Lord redeemed the firstborn, and we're going to see here, he's going to take the Levites instead of the children of Israel, instead of the firstborn, to do the service and the work of the tabernacle. Verse 10.
And thou shalt appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall wait on their priest's office, and the stranger that cometh nigh shall be put to death. Okay, some key points there. So Aaron and his sons, they are appointed to wait on the priest's office. So they administer the duties of the priest. Aaron and his sons do the job of the priest. The other Levites who are not Aaron's sons, they do other jobs that don't concern the priest's office, the priest administration. And clearly he said here, and the stranger that cometh nigh, what happens to him? He should be put to death. So the stranger's not allowed to come upon this tabernacle. He better keep as far away as possible. Does this mean that he doesn't have access to salvation? By no means it doesn't mean that. It just means that Israel is supposed to be dealing and conducting the business of the Lord. That's why he chose Israel to be the holy priest, to be a priest. I can't even think. To be a holy nation, right? To be priest unto the other nations. He's very clear, and he's following. He's keeping this protocol. Where you at, verse 11? Yes. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, And I, behold, I have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel, instead of all the firstborn that openeth the matrix among the children of Israel. Therefore the Levites shall be mine. So
remember in the lesson of the firstborn, he used the same terminology in Exodus. I can't remember where it's at, 4 or 6 or something like that. He said, Behold, I have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel instead of all the firstborn that open the matrix. So he's taking the Levites instead of the firstborn, and he says, therefore the Levites shall be mine. So the Levites now belong to the Lord. The firstborn no longer are considered the Lord's. He's given them back to Israel. We covered that in the lesson. He's given them back to Israel. Now the Levites are his specifically. Verse 13.
Because all the firstborn are mine, for on the day that I smote, all the firstborn in the land of Egypt I hallowed unto me all the firstborn in Israel, both man and beast. Mine shall they be. I am the Lord.
That's right. Come on.
And the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, saying, Number the children of Levi after the house of their fathers, by their families. Every male from a month old and upward shalt thou number them. And Moses numbered them according to the word of the Lord, as he was commanded. And these were the sons of Levi by their names, Gershon and Kohath and Merari.
Okay, so the Lord is commanding Moses here to number the children of Levi after their house of their fathers by their families. This is the only time you will see that Levi was allowed to be numbered. The Lord did not allow Levi to be numbered after this by anybody else. This is the only time that this will happen. And it's for a specific reason. Moses then numbered according to the Lord, verse 17. Or no, AC, you're at 18. Go ahead.
And these are the names of the sons of Gershon by their families, Libni and Shimei. And the sons of Kohath by their families, Amram and Issachar, Hebron and Uzziel. And the sons of Merari by their families, Mahli and Mushai. These are the families of the Levites according to the house of their fathers. Of Gershon was the family of the Libnites, and the family of the Shimeites. These are the families of the Gershonites. And those that were numbered of them according to the number of all the males from a month old and upward, even those that were numbered of them were 7,500.
Okay, and see, one important thing to note here, when the numbering of the Levites occurred, he numbered them from a month old and upward. From a month old and upward. You will not see that in any other numbering of anybody else. When he sets Moses to number the different tribes of Israel, when he sets him to number Judah, when he sets him to number Benjamin, Gad, so on and so forth, except for Levi, they all were numbered from the age of 20 and upward. 20 and upward. But here, he wants to know the full account of how many exactly a month and upward of the Levites were. Verse 23.
The families of the Gershonites shall pitch behind the tabernacle westward.
Okay, so he's assigning specific places for the Levites to pitch their tents around the tabernacle. Remember, we talked about maybe that's a question and answer, but we talked about where all the camps were stationed around the tabernacle. So he's telling him where these Levites shall pitch their tents. Verse 24.
And the chief of the house of the father of the Gershonites shall be Eliasaph, the son of Lael, and the charge of the sons of Gershon in the tabernacle of the congregation shall be the tabernacle, and the tent, the covering thereof, and the hanging for the door of the tabernacle of the congregation.
Okay, so now he is giving a specific charge. He's letting them know specifically what the sons of Gershon are responsible for in the ministry of this office. The Gershon in the tabernacle congregation shall be the tabernacle and the tent, the covering thereof, and the hanging for the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So if you remember what we talked about in the last lesson, you know exactly what he's talking about here. The door that goes on the outside of the tent of the tabernacle. That is one of the coverings. They're responsible for that. And the hangings of the court, the covering that goes on the outside of the court, like the gate to the outside. That's one of their responsibilities. Where you at?
26.
26, go ahead.
And the hangings of the court, and the curtain for the door of the court, which is by the tabernacle, and by the altar round about, and the cords of it for all the service thereof. And Kohath was the family of the Amorites, and the family of the Issacharites, and the family of the Hebronites, and the family of the Uzzielites. These are the families of the Kohathites. In the number of all the males from a month old and upward were 8,600, keeping the charge of the sanctuary.
Okay, so I had to do it, all the names. I had to do it to you.
Praise the Lord.
But yeah, you did a great job. But okay, so I had to read all of this to get to verse 27. And the sons of Kohath was a family of the Amorites, Amramites. And these are the families of the Kohathites. Okay, so he gives all the families of the Kohathites, and he says in verse 28 at the end, they are to keep the charge of the sanctuary. So their job is to keep the charge of the sanctuary. Verse 29.
The families of the sons of Kohath shall pitch on the side of the tabernacle southward. And
And I'm having him go through this because their job is a little bit more specific and a little bit more, I want to say, important, I guess you might say, than these others. Go ahead.
And the chief of the house of the father of the families of the Kohathites shall be Elizaphan, the son of Uziel. And their charge shall be the ark, and the table, and the candlestick, and the altars, and the vessels of the sanctuary wherewith they minister, and the hanging of in all the service thereof.
Okay, so we see what their charge is. They're in charge of the burden of the ark, the table, the candlestick, the altars, the vessels of the sanctuary wherewith they minister. So these are some of the things that are considered the holiest of the most holy things unto the Lord. And the Kohathites are given charge to take care of these things when it is their burden for the tabernacle to be moved from place to place. So this is the job of the Kohathites. Very important to note and understand this. We finished that?
Yes.
Okay, Numbers 4. Numbers 4, pick it up at verse 1. Numbers 4 and verse 1. Go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, Take the sum of the sons of Kohath from among the sons of Levi, after their families, by the house of their fathers, from 30 years old and upward, even until 50 years old.
Okay, now here's what I was talking about. Some of these Hebrews out here teaching a false doctrine out from a mistake, a misunderstanding. He said, now take the sum of the sons of Kohath from 30 years old and upward, even until 50 years old, he says, right? 50 years old. So the span for these Kohaths are from 30 years of age until 50 years of age, right? And what age do we teach that you should begin that you begin teaching? 30 years of age, right? So this kind of coincides with that, right? Okay, but they say the cutoff here is at 50 years of age, right? So does that mean you should be teaching from 30 years to 50? So should 50 be a cutoff? Okay, there's some Hebrews out there teaching that's what the case is here. But let's see if we can read and get that understanding from this. But this is what these Hebrews are out here teaching based upon a misunderstanding. Remember in Numbers 3, he said he gave the Levites to Aaron to what? To minister unto Aaron, right? And so they, like I said, they took that word minister to mean teach, and they think that from 30 years to upward to 50 means that is the age in which you minister or teach. So you can understand you can see the misunderstanding, but let's see if we can read that. If we get that from what we read. At the top of verse 3 again.
From 30 years old and upward, even until 50 years old, all that enter into the host, to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation.
Okay, so they had to be from 30 to 50 to do the work of the tabernacle of the congregation. Because in the argument, they're saying that teachers like Brother Bowie should have stepped down a long time ago. And I said, you people are talking crazy. You're talking crazy. I'm still under 50, thank the Lord. But that would be a blessing. I'm just kidding. But Brother Bowie had to step down. Brother Elijah, Brother Dan. There'd be a whole bunch of good teachers out there who still got many years ahead of them with much more knowledge than some of the rest of us young cats have. They've forgotten more than I'll probably ever know. So what a terrible tragedy it would be to lose that knowledge and understanding if they couldn't teach anymore. So this is something that this is why I'm trying to go through these things to make sure that people understand exactly what is being said here and don't let a misconception steer you down the wrong path. So 30 to 50 to do the work of the congregation, the tabernacle of the congregation, verse 4.
This shall be the service of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation, about the most holy thing. Okay,
so this is the service of the sons of Kohath. And what do we already establish in verse, where that was in chapter 3, we already established what their job was, the sons of Kohath. Their job was to take care of the ark, the candlestick, the table, those things, that the altar, that was their job, right? Okay, so we established what their job was. No part of there said anything about teaching, did it?
No.
Okay, so we know what their job is, and we know the age in which they are required to be to fit within. Verse 5.
And when the camp setteth forward.
So when the camp setteth forward, in other words, when it's time for the camp to move, when that cloud raises up, and it's time for the camp to move, well, go ahead.
Aaron shall come, and his sons, and they shall take down the covering veil, and cover the ark of testimony with it.
Okay, so when it's time for the tabernacle to move, who comes in and takes down these things? Takes down the covering of the veil and the covering of the ark of the testimony? Who comes in and does this?
Aaron and his sons.
Aaron and the sons. Very important to understand this. Aaron and his sons come in and they dismantle everything that's inside the tabernacle, wrap it all up and take care of it. Keep going.
And shall put thereon the covering of badger skin, and shall spread over it a cloth wholly of blue, and shall put in the staves thereof. And upon the table of showbread they shall spread a cloth of blue, and put thereon the dishes, and the spoons, and the bowls, and covers to cover withal, and the continual bread shall be thereon. And they shall spread upon them a cloth of scarlet, and cover the same with the covering of badger skin, and shall put in the staves thereof. Verse 9. And they shall take a cloth of blue, and cover the candlestick of the light, and his lamps, and his tongs, and his snuff dishes, and all the oil vessels thereof, wherewith they minister unto it.
So it's very specific, all the things that they're covering up and packing up, right? And if we hadn't already gone through this, these things in the other lesson, you wouldn't know what he's talking about, right? You're welcome. So they're being very particular, and the sons of Aaron are the ones who are taking care of the packing up of these things. Very important things if you want to preserve your life. Verse 10.
And they shall put it in all the vessels thereof within a covering of badger skins, and shall put it upon a bar. And upon the golden altar they shall spread a cloth of blue, and cover it with a covering of badger skins, and shall put to the staves thereof. And they shall take all the instruments of ministry wherewith they minister in the sanctuary, and put them in a cloth of blue, and cover them with a covering of badger skins, and shall put them on a bar. And they shall take away the ashes from the altar, and spread a purple cloth upon a cloth thereon. And they shall put upon it all the vessels thereof, wherewith they minister about it, even the censers, the flesh hooks, and the shovels, and the basins, and the vessels of the altar. And they shall spread upon it a covering of badger skins, and put to the staves of it. And when Aaron and his sons have made an end of covering the sanctuary.
And when Aaron and his sons have made an end of covering the sanctuary, go ahead.
And all the vessels of the sanctuary, as the camp is to set forward.
And when it's ready to set forward, when it's ready to move.
After that, the sons of Kohath shall come to bear it.
And after that, the sons of Kohath shall come to bear it. So after all these things are packed up, all these things are ready to move, then the sons of Kohath come in, and they are ready to bear the burden of these things. Go ahead.
But they shall not touch any holy thing.
But they shall what?
They shall not touch any holy thing.
Why is that?
Lest they die.
Lest they die. So it's very important to understand who is responsible for packing up these holy things, that the holy things are packaged up properly, and then are they to come in and to move then they're charged with coming in and moving the burden of this thing. I personally wouldn't want to be a son of Kohath, because it's been too easy to get killed. I mean, you're talking about moving the Ark of the Covenant, and we've read many times, the mistake somebody made when the Ark wasn't handled right, just to put out his hand to stop it from falling. He did an innocent thing to help it, and he was killed for it. So I always envision, you got the ark covered up, and say the cover falls off, and your hand just brush against it lightly or something. That'd be enough to get you killed. I'm good. Let's just let me move one of the curtains outside. But it's very important. We see the importance that things are done decently and orderly, and that they be followed, the instructions be followed to the letter of the law. Finish that.
These things are the burden of the sons of Kohath.
These things are the burden of who?
Of the sons of Kohath.
Very specific. Very specific. Only the sons of Kohath come in and do these things. Go ahead.
In the tabernacle of the congregation.
Very specific. Let's go to, or no, we keep reading. I just split this up so that we can understand who is being talked about here, what offices are being talked about. So now we're going to keep reading in Numbers 4, verse 16. But now he is talking about the office of Eleazar. This is the office of Eleazar. Go ahead.
And to the office of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, pertaineth the oil for the light, and the sweet incense, and the daily meat offering, and the anointing oil, and the oversight of all the tabernacle, and of all that therein is, in the sanctuary, and in the vessels thereof. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, Cut ye not off the tribe of the families of the Kohathites from among the Levites, but thus do unto them that they may live and not die. When they approach unto the most holy things, Aaron and his sons shall go in, and appoint them every one to his service and to his burden. So he's saying when the Kohathites come in and come to do their job, you go in and you tell them exactly, everyone to his service, everything that is to be moved. They're very specific with them so that they don't be killed. Verse 20. But they shall not go in to see when the holy things are covered, lest they die. So very specific things. If they even peek in the tent while the things are being covered, they could be killed. This is very important things to know, I would think, if you're charged to do these things. So the Lord's very specific, and he means when he tells you don't do something, don't do it. So just peeking in was enough to get them killed. Now let's go. Let's see the service of the Gershonites, verse 21. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Take also the sum of the sons of Gershon throughout the houses of their fathers by their families, from 30 years old and upward until 50 years old shalt thou number them. All that enter into perform the service to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. So again, we see those numbers from 30 years old and upward until 50 years old. So once the Kohathites, once the Gershonites, once the Merarites, once all these different Levites tribes, once they reach the age of 50, they're supposed to quit, and that's like a burden, a blessing or a mercy upon them, because you're talking about for a long time. Some 20 years bearing the burden of carrying these heavy things. We're talking about the ark being a solid gold. That's a heavy thing. So a man above 50 years old of age doing these heavy burdens, this would be like a retirement for him. You understand what I'm saying? So there's a reason. The Lord was having mercy on them. They didn't have to carry out these heavy burdens the rest of their days in their old, in their old age. So the Lord's being merciful to them. So he set the number at the age of 50. They no longer have to do this heavy lifting. Where are you at? Let's skip down to 29.
So skip down to verse 29. The sons of Merari. Service of Merarites. Go ahead.
As for the sons of Merari, thou shalt number them after their families, by the house of their fathers. From 30 years old and upward, even unto 50 years old, shalt thou number them. Every one that entereth into the service to do the work of the tabernacle of the congregation. So again, we see that the job here is to do the work of the service of the tabernacle, not to teach. We're not talking about teaching here. Keep going. Oh no, skip down. I'm sorry. Skip down to verse 34. I won't make you go through all of the different Levites here. I just wanted to establish what was being said when they make when he set the balance from 30 to 50. Go ahead at verse 34. And Moses and Aaron and the chief of the congregation numbered the sons of the Kohathites after their families and after the house of their fathers, from 30 years old and upward, even unto 50 years old. everyone that entereth into the service for the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. And those that were numbered of them by their families were 2,750. These were they that were numbered of the families of the Kohathites, all that might do service in the tabernacle of the congregation, which Moses and Aaron did number according to the commandment of the Lord by the hand of Moses. And those that were numbered of the sons of Gershon throughout their families and by the house of their fathers, from 30 years old upward, even unto 50 years old, everyone that entereth into the service for the work in the tabernacle of the congregation.
That's it. Okay, so from the 30 years old and upward, even in the 50 years old, everyone that enters into the service for the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. And here, the reason why I'm showing this again is because this did not just only pertain to the sons of Kohath. This was all the sons that were appointed. The Merarites, the Gershites, all of them that were 30 to 50 to do the service in the work of the tabernacle. So it's very specific. So when you see or hear those Hebrews talking about, yeah, you can only teach them to the age of 50, you can bring them here and you can show them this and you can end the conversation. Because now you can explain it. Skip down to verse 46.
All those that were numbered of the Levites, whom Moses and Aaron and the chief of Israel numbered, after their families and after the house of their fathers, from 30 years old and upward, even unto 50 years old. Everyone that came to do the service of the ministry and the service of the burden in the tabernacle of the congregation. Even those that were numbered of them were 8,549. According to the commandment of the Lord, they were numbered by the hand of Moses, everyone according to his service, and according to his burden. Thus were they numbered of him as the Lord commanded Moses.
Okay, so the Lord commanded that they be counted. And this again is the only time that the Levites would be numbered or commanded to be numbered by the Lord. And it was only for the service of the tabernacle. Numbers, let's go into Numbers 7. So after Moses has numbered the Levites, yeah, that's right. 89. So Moses has completed this, and now we're going back and see where we at. Numbers 7 and verse 89. Let's see what happens here. Moses enters the tabernacle, and what does he hear? 7 and verse 89. When you get it, brother, go ahead.
And when Moses was gone into the tabernacle of the congregation to speak with him, then he heard the voice of one speaking unto him from off the mercy seat that was upon the ark of testimony, from between the two cherubims, and he spake unto him. So
this is after Moses has gotten everything together, after he has numbered Israel, or numbered the Levites. We're also going to see he's also numbered the men of Israel that were of fighting age. We're going to cover all that. But Moses taking care of all these things, and he's gone into the tabernacle to talk with the Lord. And for the first time, he hears this voice coming from the Ark of the Covenant. And you can imagine, at least I would be kind of surprised. I don't know if Moses expected that or not. But the voice comes from the Ark of the Tabernacle, or the Ark of the Covenant, and this is the first time that the Lord has spoken to Moses from the tabernacle. Now let's go to Numbers 1. Numbers 1. This is, again, we'll see this is all happening same day. Numbers 1, verse 1. Numbers 1, verse 1. All right, brother, go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tabernacle of the congregation, on the first day of the second month. in the 2nd year after they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Take ye the sum of all the congregation of the children of Israel, after their families, by the house of their fathers, with the number of their names, every male by their polls, from 20 years old and upward, all that are able to go forth to war in Israel. Thou and Aaron shall number them by their armies. And with you they shall be a man of every tribe, every one head of the house of his fathers.
So just to try to put this in the chronological order for you so you understand. Moses gets everything into the tent. He gets the tent reared up. He gets the Levites set up to minister their things. He's got it set up so that the Levites do the particular families do their particular jobs. And then Moses goes into the tabernacle congregation. He hears the voice of the Lord, and the voice of the Lord, now this is where we're at, is telling Moses, now you go and number the children of Israel. Go and number take ye the sum of all the congregation of the children of Israel. Skip down now to verse 16. I'm going to spare you a little bit. Again, you're welcome. All those names. My brother can do it though. Skip down to verse 16. Verse 16. Or if you want to show off here, you can go right ahead.
I'm going to verse 16.
Okay. He's going to go to 16. We'll show off another day.
Yes.
All right, brother, go ahead.
These were the renown of the congregation, princes of the tribes of their fathers, heads of thousands in Israel.
Okay, so all these are the most renowned of the princes of Israel and the tribes of Israel. These are the heads of the thousands. So these are the main men, the main ones, the HNICs of each house of Israel, right? So verse 17.
And Moses and Aaron took these men which are expressed by their names, and they assembled all the congregation together on the 1st day of the 2nd month. And they declared their pedigrees after their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, by their polls.
Okay, so, excuse me, the Lord, Moses went into the tabernacle. Lord told him, count the number of Israel. It took them about a month to accomplish this. Now we are in the 2nd month. What did he say? In the 1st day of the 2nd month. Now we are. And they have declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the numbers of the names, 20 years old and upward, by their polls. By their heads is what polls mean. So 20 years old and upwards. These are the fighting men, the age of the fighting men. It's also the age of accountability with the Lord. Verse 19.
As the Lord commanded Moses, so he numbered them in the wilderness of Sinai.
So they're in the wilderness of Sinai. The Lord is having Moses to number these men so that he knows how many fighting men he's got. Skip down to verse 45.
So were all those that were numbered of the children of Israel by the house of their fathers, from 20 years old and upward, all that were able to go forth to war in Israel.
Okay, so we just skipped down because he goes through all the tribes, all 12 tribes, and it gives you the numbers of each of those tribes. So we won't go through all that, but now. We are at verse 45. So all those that were numbered of the children of Israel by the house of their fathers were 20 years old and upward. Verse 46.
Even all they that were numbered were 600,000 and 3,550.
So 603,050, 550 is the number of the total fighting men that we are talking about here at this time. That's not including men and women. So if you want to know the numbers here, if you want to count the men and women, if you're guessing men and women and children, we're talking about over 1 million people at this time. But we're concerned here with just the fighting men from ages 20 years and upward. Keep going.
47. But the Levites after the tribe of their fathers were not numbered among them.
But the Levites were not numbered among them. Remember I told you the Levites were not going to be counted anymore. And they don't count the Levites are not counted here because the Levites didn't do any fighting. It wasn't their job to do any fighting. So he didn't count the Levites. And keep going.
For the Lord had spoken unto Moses, saying, Only thou shalt number the tribe of thou shalt not number the tribe of Levi, neither take the sum of them among the children of Israel. But thou shalt appoint the Levites over the tabernacle of the testimony, and over all the vessels thereof, and over all the things that belong to it. They shall bear the tabernacle and all the vessels thereof, and they shall minister unto it, and shall encamp round about the tabernacle.
Okay, so we see that curious word there again, minister unto it. If they aren't teaching the tabernacle anything, so obviously to minister unto the tabernacle means to take care of it, to take care of the duties of the tabernacle. So it says, they shall minister unto it and shall encamp round about the tabernacle. So they're just so he also lets you know that they encamp around the tabernacle. Verse 51.
And when the tabernacle setteth forward, the Levites shall take it down. And when the tabernacle is to be pitched, the Levites shall set it up. And the stranger that cometh nigh shall be put to death.
So the stranger couldn't even come help with the taking down or putting up of the tabernacle. Very important information, especially if you're a stranger. You want to know that. Verse 52.
And the children of Israel shall pitch their tents, every man by his own camp, and every man by his standard, throughout their host.
Okay, so all the children of Israel shall pitch their tents, every man by his own camp. So all the camps, all the different tribes pitched in its own camp. They were very specific where they were, and it said they pitched their camps by every man by his own standard. Standard being a flag or a banner. So wherever the tribe of Judah placed his banner or his flag, that's where you pitched if you belong to the tribe of Judah. Verse 53.
But the Levites shall pitch round about the tabernacle of testimony, that there be no wrath upon the congregation of the children of Israel.
So the Levites pitched themselves around the tabernacle, immediately around the tabernacle, so that there will be no wrath from the Lord about this. And keep going.
And the Levites shall keep the charge of the tabernacle of testimony. And the children of Israel did according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. So did they.
So they managed to do all that the Lord had commanded, and none of them were killed at this point. But it didn't take long, trust me, for one of them to be killed. Two of them, in fact. It didn't take long. But they managed to do all this up to this point without being killed. Congratulations, Israel. You managed to do something right. So we finished that, right? Okay. Numbers, going into Numbers 2. Going into Numbers 2. So that was the numbering of the fighting men of Israel. And the preparation. They were preparing to leave. They're preparing the tabernacle to leave Sinai. That's what they're doing. That's what all this is about. Because they've been pitched around Sinai now for a year, over a year, and now they are preparing, the Lord is preparing them to leave. Numbers 2 verse 1. Go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, Every man of the children of Israel shall pitch his own standard with the ensign of their father's house. Far off about the tabernacle of the congregation shall they pitch.
Okay, so every man shall pitch his own tent, pitch his tent by his own standards. We didn't talk about this in the last lesson, but each according to the garments, the stones on the breastplate of Aaron, that had a different stone colors. Each of their flags represented one of those stones. So they each of them had a color and a flag pertaining to their particular house. That was 2? 17. Skip down to 17.
Then the tabernacle of the congregation shall set forward with the camp of the Levites in the midst of the camp. As they encamp, so shall they set forward, every man in his place by their standards.
Okay, so what he's saying here is the Levites, so the congregation, when it's time for the congregation to move, set forward, the camp of the Levites in the midst of the camp, so they'll be in the midst, the Levites would be in the midst of the camp, and as they encamp, so shall they set forward. So, like we read earlier, since Judah was the first one to bring their offering, they are the first one to move behind the camp, the tabernacle. So the Levite, or so Judah would be first. Keep going. There was no. Skip down to 32.
These are those which were numbered of the children of Israel by the house of their fathers. All those that were numbered of the camps throughout their hosts were 600,000 and 3,550. But the Levites were not numbered among the children of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses. And the children of Israel did according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. So they pitched by their standards, and so they set forward, every one after their families, according to the house of their fathers.
Okay, so this is the arrangement of the camp. This is how the camp was arranged. This is how everyone knew where to go. It was very organized, so there wasn't mass chaos. Every time you can imagine, if the Lord had not organized it this way, every time they moved and they pitched a tent, people would just be camping out any kind of place and all over the place. But the Lord had organized this thing specifically so that whenever the ark was, or the camp of the tabernacle of the congregation was set, you knew your place. And you knew where to go and pitch your tent. So there was no arguing, there was no chaos. It was orderly, and it was done decently, and it was done in order. Okay, let's go. We finished that?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go to Numbers 10. Numbers 10. So, in keeping with order, with all these people, we're talking about over 1 million people, if you want to bring in the congregation for a meeting, if you need to warn the people about something, if you need to call in a specific tribe, how do you do that? You don't have cell phones, you don't have a communication system, so how do you do these things? So let's see how the Lord set up this thing so it's done decently and orderly. Numbers 10 verse 1. Go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Make thee 2 trumpets of silver, of a whole piece of a whole piece shalt thou make them, that thou mayest use them for the calling of the assembly and for the journeying of the camps.
Okay, so when he wanted to call an assembly, make a calling of the assembly, or when it was time for the camp to move on, he blew the trumpet. He blew the trumpet. Verse 3.
And when they shall blow with them, all the assembly shall assemble themselves at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation.
And this is all, so when it was time to assemble, they knew where to assemble, at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Very specific. Verse 4.
And if they blow but with one trumpet, then the princes, which are heads of the thousands of Israel, shall gather themselves unto thee.
So they knew if they heard only one trumpet blowing, then it was a meeting for just the princes to come to the door of the tabernacle. Verse 5.
When ye blow an alarm, then the camps that lie on the east parts shall go forward.
Okay, so when an alarm is blown, the camps that lie on the east side of the tabernacle shall go forward. Verse 6.
When ye blow an alarm the second time, then the camps that lie on the south side shall take their journey. They shall blow an alarm for their journeys. But when the congregation is to be gathered together, ye shall blow, but ye shall not sound an alarm.
So, very decently, done decently in order. When there's an alarm, you'd blow one time and one side of the camp would move. When you did it again, the other side of the camp would move. Because if you didn't do it orderly, you blow that trump, the alarm, and you know how we are. If one starts running, everybody starts running. I mean, at least that's the way it is for me. When one of y'all starts running out of here in the back, I'm going to follow right behind him until I find out what he's running for. So it's got to be decently and orderly. Otherwise, it wants to be trampling one another, and it's chaos. But the Lord is a Lord of structure. He's a Lord of process, and he does things decently and orderly. Where are you at?
Verse 8.
Verse 8.
And the sons of Aaron, the priest, shall blow with the trumpets, and they shall be to you for an ordinance, forever throughout your generations. And if ye go to war in your land against the enemy that oppresseth you, then ye shall blow an alarm with the trumpets, and ye shall be remembered before the Lord your God, and ye shall be saved from your enemies. Also, in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginnings of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your God. I am the Lord your God.
So these trumpets had a very important significance to them. They blew them, of course, when it was time to call assemblies. They blew them in the time of an alarm, and they also blew them for the monthly sacrifices. We know they blew them also for the memorial of blowing the trumpets, which is coming up in about a week, 2 weeks, coming up the 29th. We'll be covering that. So we see these trumpets had a very significant thing. We'll go over it during the feast day. But the trumpets signify the presence of the Lord, the coming of the Lord. Very specific and important thing to understand. We finished that, right? All right. So now let's look at Numbers 10 and verse 11. Now the trip begins. Now the trip is beginning. Now the Lord has gotten everything set in place. Now I think we are finally ready for the tabernacle and the camp to move. Verse 11.
And it came to pass on the 20th day of the second month in the second year, that the cloud was taken up from off the tabernacle of the testimony. And the children of Israel took their journeys out of the wilderness of Sinai. And the cloud rested in the wilderness of Paran.
Okay, so they left Sinai, and they're on their way to Kadesh Barnea, and the cloud lifted up and they rested in the wilderness of Paran, it says. Verse 13.
And they first took their journey according to the commandment of the Lord by the hand of Moses.
And they took their first journey according to the land. If I'm not mistaken, they made 30 miles in the first 2 days on foot. If you can imagine, I can't imagine doing that. If I walk a mile, I'm done.
30 miles?
But yeah, 30 miles I believe it is in 2 days. So they moved. The trip begins. The cloud. We notice here the things that I tried to show you. How they knew to move. The cloud went up, and they moved. They journeyed on. And when the cloud rested, they rested. They knew to pitch their tents. Verse. That was where you at? I'm lost.
Yeah, we finished 13.
Okay, so we finished 13. Verse 14. The order of the divisions. That's what we're looking at. Verse 14.
In the first place went the standard of the camp of the children of Judah according to their armies.
Okay, so remember I was telling you that when they moved according to the number, according to the ones they offered first. There's here, if in case anybody was wondering or wanted to put justification to that, we see that right here. The first place went to the standard of the camp of the children of Judah according to their armies, and over his host was Nahshon, the son of Amminadab. Skip down to verse 28. Read that.
Thus were the journeyings of the children of Israel according to their armies when they set forward.
Okay, so he went through and he numbered and he named all the tribes and in succession to them, and he just said, now thus were the journeyings of the children of Israel according to their armies when they moved. Now let's go to Exodus 40. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So now we're talking about the cloud. The cloud leads them. Exodus 40 and 36. We're almost done. The trip has finally began. Exodus 40, verse 36. All right, brother, whenever you get it.
when the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the children of Israel went onward in all their journeys. But if the cloud were not taken up, then they journeyed not till the day that it was taken up.
So whenever the cloud went up, they journeyed on. Wherever it stayed, they stayed. But if it didn't go up, if the cloud did not go up, they stayed right where they were at. Verse 38.
For the cloud of the Lord was upon the tabernacle by day, and fire was on it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys.
So the cloud was on the day by day, and the fire by night, in the sight of who? Of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys. So like I said, most likely it was only the house of Israel, it was only the children of Israel that could see this cloud and the fire by night, because otherwise they would be in jeopardy to their enemies. Because we're talking about a moving, marching army here, and secrecy would be vital to their plans. So the element of surprise would be very important to them to defeat their enemies. Numbers 10. Numbers 10. We're going to pick it up at verse 33. Two more places after this. Numbers 10, verse 33. All right, brother, go ahead.
And they departed from the mount of the Lord 3 days' journey. And the ark of the covenant of the Lord went before them in the 3 days' journey, to search out a resting place for them. And the cloud of the Lord was upon them by day, when they went out of the camp. And it came to pass, when the ark set forward, that Moses said, Rise up, Lord, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. And when it rested, he said, Return, O Lord, unto the many thousands of Israel.
So, we finished that? That was all right? Yeah. Okay. So we see, again, this is how the cloud, they journeyed. The cloud went up. And Moses made a little prayer when it was time to set the ark forward. He said, Rise up, Lord, and let thine enemies be scattered. And when it was time to rest, return, O Lord, unto the many thousands of Israel. Go into chapter 11 and verse 1. And I'm going to say, okay, so this is what the fire at Tabernacle is what this was. Now the murmurings begin. The ark the whole camp is on the move now. They're not sitting in place anymore, in one place anymore. And now Israel's getting ready to start complaining. They're getting ready to start murmuring. Chapter 11, verse 1.
And when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, and the Lord heard it. And his anger was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burnt among them, and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp.
So all that complaining, they start murmuring and complaining. The Lord started getting upset about it, and it said the fire started to consume them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp. So the Lord they just get started moving, and the Lord's already got to start killing some of them off because of their murmurings. Verse 2.
And the people cried unto Moses, and when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire was quenched. So Moses, they can complain to Moses, and Moses would pray for them, and the fire would be quenched. Verse 3. And he called the name of the place Tabernacle, because the fire of the Lord burnt among them. Okay, so we see the beginnings already of Israel starting to complain. They complain and start murmuring. So I want y'all to remember this. Now we're going last place, Philippians 2 and verse 14. So remember, whenever Brother Travis gives one of these long lessons with a lot of information, keep that murmuring down to a minimum. because of what he says here. Philippians 2 and verse 14. When you get it, brother, go ahead and read. Do all things without murmurings and disputings.
And I hope you got some understanding in Jesus' name.